Well, hello, everybody. It's your friend Bill here, and I am going to use this screen sharing, screencasting software off and on to present some content for you. And I'm going to do one take and just fly through it, no rehearsal or anything like that, like I would if it was a podcast or whatever. So, hope this works for you. One of the next projects, and it needs to be an early project, I think, is the digital portfolio project as part of this. And the reason why is because we want to make sure that everything is captured that you're doing and archived, because what the things you're learning, the resources you're collecting are all really important. And so, in order to make it work, I want to make sure you guys get this started up front. So what I've put together is some slides and some content on UGC, which is user-generated content. I used to use, what was it? Well, I got it in a later slide. I've already used to saying UGC, I guess. User-generated learning is another way, UGL. We love acronyms in our field, but this is something that really comes out of the internet. I've got some information that kind of goes back a ways in terms of the net. But anyway, let me do this, and I've got this particular screen here is just a Google Slides, and instead of playing the big piece, let me see what that looks like if I do that. If I play the slideshow, I guess I could. I may get out of it at different times, though. So this is actually a teacher I used to work with many years ago in our old computer lab. And so UGC and digital portfolio. So in the end, I know why I'm not doing it. It's because I don't have the whole screen captured. Yeah, I'll keep it like this. So let's just get into it. So the next slide, content was the other UGC or UGL. User-generated, meaning that you're generating your own learning. It's a term used not just in education, but also used in business as well. I want to start with a quote. Will Richardson, who is not so well known nowadays, but he was really the first educator to look at using the internet, blogs, what we used to call wikis, all that sort of stuff, and infuse it within our learning. So he says the most sweeping change is not so much the ability to publish, Twitter, blogs, whatever, but the ability to share and connect. Our ability to create what could be called a professional learning network is so much bigger now than it ever was. And I've got a slide that will show that. I'm not sure this will work. Let's see if it works well for you.
Price ever at Radio Shack on the most powerful transportable cellular phone system. Just $7.99 when you sign up with Radio Shack's authorized cellular phone carrier. Go where you wanna go. There's nothing else to buy, and it's ready to go wherever you go. Call when you wanna call. Use in your car, or go portable and take it along. Radio Shack's complete transportable cellular phone system. Just $7.99 only at Radio Shack, the technology store.
Hopefully you heard that. There is no doubt that when you look at a 1986, I think it is, ad for Radio Shack phones, they used to call them bag phones. I never had one, even though I was a teacher in that year. But for $800, you can have a bag phone. But that's what technology was, and that to me doesn't seem that long ago. But of course it is. So remember, we've always had technology. We've always had it. I love this line from a principal's publication in 1815. Students today depend on paper too much. They don't know how to write on a slate anymore. What will they do when they run out of paper? And then from a National Teachers Association in 2005, students depend way too much on ink. They don't know how to use a pen, knife to sharpen a pencil. I love that line. Here's another one from 1928. Students depend upon store-bought ink. They don't know how to make their own. And from the PTA Gazette in 1941, students depend way too much on fountain pens. They shouldn't be wallowing in such luxury. So you can see that life has changed quite a bit. And this one from 1950, ballpoint pens are going to be the ruin of education in this country. So as we now think about ChatGPT, which I talked about in our first time together, and artificial intelligence, and of course before that, the whole internet thing, Google, We're worried about Chat GPT and kids writing their term papers or having a computer write it for them. I think we just got to kind of go with the flow because technology is here to stay. But again, technology has changed. Paper and pencil used to be big technology. And now, of course, we just keep on changing altogether. So Web 1.0, as we used to call it, was the original web. And you could see there's a tombstone, 1989 to 2005. I'm not sure where they got those years, but that's when everything was just static web pages. So we bought things on Amazon.com. We read the news on CNN.com or Fox. We just kind of continued a one-way street. We didn't give back to the internet. It pretty much just gave to us. And we used search engines and that sort of thing. Then came Web 2.0. And again, if we use the tombstone, 2005, but I think somewhere in the 2000s, we realized that we had applications that we used on the web, not just desktop apps. If you're old enough, you might remember when you bought Microsoft Word or the latest Apple Mac update in a disk, right? And you just put it in and you updated it, and it costs a lot of money generally, and that's how you updated. People don't have disk drives anymore. They're gone. You can still have them. I have a portable one I could use if I had to. You might use a little stick, right? But basically everything comes from the internet now. If you want new software, if you want an update, you don't put a disk in your computer anymore. Web 2.0 brought things like Facebook and blogs and Twitter. They're more thought about ideas and creativity. And you really didn't have to have much, you still don't have to have much technical know-how. If you want to do a Google Sites or a Weebly, you basically need to know how to type and how to use basic operations like you would if you bought a book off Amazon. That's Web 2.0. I'm not sure I've heard about Web 3.0 yet, but I'm sure it exists. Another way to look at it is if you were a typical teacher in the pre-Web 2.0, how did you get your information? Well, you got it from curriculum documents, those dusty books, your colleagues, obviously, and some popular media. When I was a teacher at one point, CNN had something called Newsroom, and every morning at 6 o'clock or 6:30, I put my VHS tape, and there would be a 10-minute news show for kids. Then I would bring that tape to school, and I would use it as my current events thing. And that's the way current events was taught in many ways. Of course, now we wouldn't do that. We'd get a YouTube video or something. Then that grew, and you could say, let me see if I'll click this. It's a little easier to read. You don't get all this on the right-hand side. But the network teacher, there's so many different ways now to get information. The network teacher is the Web 2.0 or maybe now 3.0 teacher. So what has changed? In general, digital media allows us to connect with each other, with the world. We can connect with Australia. I interviewed John Hattie for my podcast for NHASCD. It was the day after. It was something like 8 a.m. in Melbourne. The day after, the next day, like on a Friday, and it was like Thursday, 4 p.m. for me. And we didn't miss a beat. It was a podcast, but it was as if, same thing with the cell phone, right? But that wasn't the case when I was a young teacher. And now the smartest person in the room is the room. So now, because of the internet, we're no longer just the experts on knowledge. Now, again, an elementary teacher, your knowledge of teaching and pedagogy and, literacy and numeracy, no computer is going to match that. But if you're a history teacher in ninth grade, kids can get the facts off the internet. Your goal is to facilitate that more than anything else. The bar's been raised, culture has changed. Our world expects us to meet the challenge, and it's even bigger. I'm going to show a few pictures here to kind of just make a quick point and get beyond this. These are my kids and my nephews in 2001. Let's see here. So these two guys on the ends are my nephews, my oldest son, Ben, that's Abby, and that's Jacob. Okay, 2001. That's them again in 2015. You can see now my son is the shortest, and, well, Abby's actually shorter, and my son, Jacob, and so on. And now this, just, 7 years later, is my bigger family. They all have partners now, or husbands and wives, my wife and I, 2 grandkids, and that's my brother and his wife. So what's my point? Well, the point is, what tech did not exist back here when these 6 kids, this is Smuggler's Notch, Vermont, by the way. By the way, same exact place this picture was taken 14 years later. So, what didn't exist when that first picture was taken? Well, the iPod didn't come out till October 2001. No iTunes until '03. Facebook and Gmail came out in '04. Twitter '06. iPhone in '07. And the iPad came out in 2010. So, this technology just didn't exist in those days. So things have changed and they continue to change. That's my point. And as we collect things, as we learn from each other, keep in mind that we just got to keep up with the changes. So again, as I mentioned, the smartest person in the room is the room. It's the collective knowledge with the internet. So what can we do about this? Well, one thing we don't want to do is this, and this is one of my favorite little lines. When I die, I hope it's at a faculty meeting or teacher in service because the transition from life to death would be so subtle. So I hope you're laughing a little bit at that. Instead, though, let's consider this. This user-generated content, or UGC. It's not something you do, it's something you get. So, again, it's called learning or content, but there's 3 steps to this, and this is what you'll be doing throughout this course and throughout your whole career and what you've been doing, whether you know it or not. There's really 3 steps. One is curation. Curation means you're collecting it. Reflection is, now that I've got it, what am I going to do with it? And then contribution may not always happen, but contribution will happen in this course. You then take what you learned, what you curated, what you reflected on, and now you're contributing to your colleagues, to the general public. So curation. We talked about in the pre-Web 2.0 age, this is how you curated, right? You just basically collected things from traditional sources. Then it became this much more network sort of teacher situation. What are some tools? Well, some curation tools, and we won't go over them all in any detail or not, but things like Pocket or Instapaper. You may not know what those are, but let me give you an example. So I'll just do a random article on ESPN, okay? A little sports here. So here's an article on, got to be one on Brady here, right? All right, 6 big trades. All right, I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to put it in something. Now, I use something called Good Links, but it's all kind of the same sort of thing. So Pocket, Instapaper, and I could show you these when we see each other or do something live. I use this little thing up here. This is called Good Links. This will send me, it'll save it to a program. I can even tag it, and I'll just tag it Great Stuff. Then if I open up my program, Good Links, I use this all the time to keep track of articles. Here's my article. 6 big trades we want at the NBA trade deadline. And then I can click up here, and it goes back to the web page. So what I'm doing here is I am taking, in Pocket and Instapaper are just 2 other examples of that. I'm taking an article, I'm saving it for later so I can read it. RSS feeds, I won't go over those, but that's another way of collecting internet stuff, just websites in general. Have you tried Padlet? A lot of teachers use Padlet. And this allows you to, and there's even a Mac app here, once you log in, it allows you to take articles and put them all over a page. So let's say you've got 5 articles you want a friend to read, or if you're a 5th grade teacher, you want your kids to read. You can make a Padlet for that. Pinterest, you all know Pinterest. Wakelet is another one. Wakelet may be the best option, although I think it may be a Google-only thing. And this will, from all these different sources, will collect all these different articles, because God knows there's so much on the internet that you got to curate it. You got to somehow pick it and figure out, what you want. When you're doing your AARP project, you're going to be collecting articles. What are you going to do with them? Well, you could collect them to a Microsoft Word document. That's fine. But over the next 10 years as a teacher, how are you going to collect those and curate those? Very important. The next step, if we go back to our original page with the 3 things. Oh, I can't even find where it is. I'm rifling through. I probably went by it, and you're saying, Bill, you went by it. Here it is. So again, we've done curating. Next thing is reflection. And this is where you're assimilating, you're bringing together new information, and you're perhaps challenging your current beliefs by reflecting on it. So, what are some ways you can reflect? Well, there's obviously different tools. I blog, journaling. I really hope that you guys will consider journaling. Um, from your personal standpoint, if you really reflect on through journaling on your life, it's amazing what your brain will start piecing out and thinking about by just doing that. Obviously, what I'm doing right now is I'm reflecting a little bit. I'm more contributing than I'm reflecting, but you can use video or audio recording to do that. Portfolios, which you're going to be doing. Letter writing. Richard Nixon, President Nixon, really wasn't great at talking to his daughters. He just wasn't. He was an introvert. Obviously, he was a strange man and had some evil devils in him for sure, as you know, if you studied any history. But he wrote letters, and that's how people did it in those days. They wrote letters. John Adams wrote wonderful letters to his wife Abigail and back and forth. Maybe it's emails now, but reflecting just by writing people letters is a great thing. A mind map. I should have gotten this ready, but let me just do a quick a mind map. So here's an example of a mind map. See where, this is one on air and water, and you obviously make little connections here, empathy map, and that sort of thing. Some people really reflect in a more visual way with an iPad and a pen. I do that sometimes. Another way, if you're an outliner, let's say you like to outline like this. This is definitely an outline sort of thing, where you like having, that could be a Roman numeral, 1, and that could be an A, that could be a 1, a small 1. But that's how some people reflect. That's how they write. That's how they organize things. There's some great outline programs, by the way. And that's like a bullet list. All right. And the third thing in this is contribution. And this is sharing your knowledge with your colleagues, both, locally, your colleagues in your school, say, but across the world. That's the third part of user-generated learning or content. And so some contribution tools, I guess I'll use this slide for that. I listed a bunch of social media, and probably all of you do at least one of those. Pinterest, obviously, very big, and especially in Europe. Here's an interesting fact. In America, much more women, like 70% of Pinterest is women. In Europe, it's opposite. It's more men. Who knows why? Twitter is starting to go away a little bit for some because of Elon Musk and some of his policies. It's a great platform still. Mastodon is a new Twitter replacement, very, very small now, but some people are using that. Obviously, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Reddit. Reddit is pretty good. If you want to know something and be in a community on any subject in the world, including education, there's some great Reddit channels. Facebook has a great, I think it's called Teacher 603 or Educator 603 is a Facebook group for New Hampshire educators. It's excellent. Obviously, Messenger from Facebook, typical texting, YouTube. Blogging or microblogging, there's actually a microblogging site. So if you don't feel like you have to write a whole page, you can write, 2 minutes worth of stuff. Obviously, newsletters, video, audio like before, podcast, websites, that sort of thing. So those are the 3 techniques. You've got, again, curation, where you find the stuff, you collect relevant content. Reflection, all right, now that you got this content, what do you do with it? And then, of course, contribution, where you do something with it. And the last thing I'll mention is this quote. Let's see if it shows up here, from Edutopia, from John Dewey, actually. If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. John, if you haven't read any John Dewey, please read some John Dewey. Dewey was born right around the beginning of the Civil War, like 1858. He lived almost 100 years. A lot of his great work was turn of the century, 1910s, 1920s. He was so far ahead of his time. A lot of the things we do now, we consider progressive. Dewey was talking about at the turn of the century. So again, let's just say that, look at this again. If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. We have to move forward. And you're doing that as teachers, obviously, just by taking this grad course. and the others that you've taken. So what does this mean for you? Well, it means that I'd like you to be able to take this content. Oops. Too much of me. We don't want too much of me. I'm going to move myself over here. And what does it mean for the creation of your portfolio? And again, I'm not looking for an amazing portfolio. It's more of a collection. It's probably more of the curation side, a little bit of reflection, and then finally contribution. And we'll talk about this more when we meet together. But these are the major components. I'll put together a doc with this as well. One thing I do want to put in here, and that is reflection. Reflect on your content to some extent. And so you can see here, obviously it's going to be online stuff. And if you're familiar with Google Sites, it's really crazy easy. I can help you with that. Weebly is another free website, but that might be good. And by the way, I'll have examples of this in our Canvas. It's going to be much easier than you think. Critical vocabulary, I'd like you to, we're going to be talking about assessment vocabulary. That's important. Maybe some big points from your readings too. Maybe summary of some of your discussion posts, because most of the readings in the 3 books, we haven't gotten to the 3rd yet, but will be discussion posts. Our good old project, big AARP project. Your classroom assessment plan, we'll talk about that. I think it's good to include a little bit about yourself too. Reflect, as I mentioned, how you've changed as a result. Come on, baby. This program's new for me. How you've changed as an educator as a result of this course, what you learned from your colleagues, and then a little bit of a very brief draft educational philosophy. The big thing is collecting it. That's going to be the big first thing. I know it seems like a lot, but I'll have some good examples from other courses, and I think it should be okay. So there you go. That was about 22 minutes. I hope it was okay for you. I hope it worked. And as always, you can catch me if you want your own special Zoom meeting. More than happy to do that. However I can help you is great. As I said, I'll also have a more complete document with these components in it as well. So there you go. I hope that was helpful for your digital portfolio. A little bit of tech for you. And I hope the screencast format works as well. Thanks so much. And let me know how I can help you, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.